This is Ken Leon-Guerrero, and I am recording a presentation to the Guam Youth Climate Strike organization. For some reason, you haven't gotten my responses to your questionnaire sending me the third notice, so I thought I'd go ahead and do a video response and post it online so that you can share it with all your members. First of all, I'm glad to see that young people are getting more involved in the election process. Right now, adults on Guam 44 and under are 68% of our population. Adults 45 and over are 32% of our population. But when it comes to voting for the future of Guam, the 45 plus group turns out in larger numbers than the 44 and under group. And when you consider that your futures are the futures that are on the line, I am hoping that you as an organization work very hard to get more younger people registered to vote and active in voting. And they can start voting early at 477-9791 and take advantage of these early voting laws to help protect them from the risk of COVID infection. Remember, the course to the future is charted by those who show up and vote. And I'm hoping that this election we will see larger numbers of younger people vote as a percentage of the 44 and under group than we saw the last 3 elections. So question number 1 is on renewable energy. And I agree with Chairman Joey Duenas that nobody knows what the future is going to be like in 2045. Just like in January of this year, we didn't know what 2020 was going to be like. But we can make certain assumptions. One of the assumptions that we can make is that the cost of power using traditional formats is going to stay about the same or higher and cause damage to our environment. It's just a fact of life. So what promises will I keep to ensure that Guam has 100% renewable by 2045? Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is introduce a common sense waste to energy bill. I have been vigorously fighting against waste energy here on Guam, not because I'm against the concept, but because I was against the contract that was going to it was basically a pork barrel contract that was going to pay politically well-connected insiders millions and millions of dollars a year out of taxpayers' pockets for a process that, as proposed, wouldn't work. I mean, when you think about it, we have a company that has never designed or built a waste energy plant using a fraudulent contract. And I say fraudulent because I went back and looked at that contract all the way back into the 70s. And what they were doing was basically ripping off taxpayers. I have no idea why that contract is still in court. And hopefully we'll get an attorney general at some point in time that will stand up and void that contract. We know that Governor Calvo was in favor of it. We hear rumors that Leon-Guerrero was trying to get behind the contract. I don't know how true that is or not, but the fact that the contract is still in court trying to extort $20 million out of taxpayers tells me there's some politically well-connected insider behind that contract. I believe we should be going to more renewable energy in the form of rooftop solar and microgrids. Microgrids are small power plants, not this big, huge one, but unfortunately we're stuck with a big, huge one unless we exercise the political will, re-elect all new CCU commissioners, and change directions for the island's power grid. Failing that, we're going to have to make the best out of that situation. The technology looks impressive up until they start talking about LPG or natural gas. Then we have some problems. But as a senator, what I will do is support efforts to develop sustainable green energy, including in that package waste reduction. Now, question number 2 is climate change is one of the generation's biggest crises that you will inherit from us. You can change that dynamic by making sure that you, the younger people of Guam, register and start voting. Because when you look at the needs of the elders in the community, we want more retirement centers, we want more social services, more accessible parking, we want our Medicaid enhanced, we want a lot of things that politicians will give us because we're the largest voting bloc. But if you, as younger people, vote and you want things like more open air playgrounds that are secure and protected, bikeways, pathways, hiking ways, family-friendly laws, then you need to vote. The politicians need to hear from you. So climate change is a big problem. There are a lot of things that can be done at the local level, but they won't be done unless you guys go out and demonstrate that as two politicians, that the younger people and the environment is a powerful voting bloc. You need to do more than create posters. You need to actually do the work, and the work is voting. Number 3, Guam is our home. Lands and waters are worth protecting. What will we do to stop wildfires and protect our natural ecosystems? As a senator, there's very little I can do, but there's a lot more that you can do. Quit throwing your cigarettes out of the car. Number 1. Number 2, quit throwing your trash bags into the jungle. The other day, I watched a pickup truck pull up near my property and throw out 12 huge trash bags of trash onto the side of the road near my house. Now, by the time I turned around, they were already gone. So your generation needs to step up to protect the environment, and that's one of the ways you can do it. You can lobby politicians to make trash disposal service a public service and accept the fact that the citizens are going to have to pay for it one way or another. If I were elected senator, I would include trash removal as part of the property tax. That way, anybody who owns residential property, as part of their property tax, a certain part of that will be set aside to pay for residential trash service. And that way the cost gets passed on to whoever owns the house or whoever lives in the house. And that way nobody will have an excuse to pull up to a deserted road or the side of the road in the dark of night, start throwing trash bags and tires into the jungle. And the same thing goes for abandoned vehicles. There was a car abandoned near my property a couple of months ago. The car was a 2004, 2005. So you would assume that for the past 15 years, the recycling fee has been paid with that registration. And instead of using the money to buy mayor's pickup trucks or to send politicians on junkets, that money should be used to haul away the junk vehicles. I would also include a small recycling fee on appliances and white goods, so that when your air conditioner breaks down, all you have to do is call and they'll come and take it away. Because you've had this air conditioner for 5 years, and over the past 5 years you may have paid $10 or $15, so that when you call the disposal, Guam Solid Waste, they come and pick it up. Let's see, question number 4, 95% of our food is imported. What will I do to lessen Guam's reliance on food imports and increase food security? What we need to do is provide more support for our local farmers. And we need to go through the rules and regulations and make sure that the ones we have in place make sense. My son and I tried to set up a farm. But according to Department of Agriculture, in order to get an agriculture water rate, we needed to plant 100 coconut trees. I have 68 coconut trees in my backyard behind my house. Why would I have to need to plant 100 more? And I couldn't count the 68 because they were already planted. That does not make sense. What the Agriculture Department should have done is looked at our farming plan. My son has planted 6 different types of bananas, 7 different types of peppers, 3 different types of tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, long beans. I mean, a lot of vegetables, fruit and vegetables. But we can't get an agriculture water rate, which would encourage us to plant more, because we haven't planted 68 hardwood trees. Coconut, mango, although we did plant 4 avocado trees and 1 lemonchina tree. So in order to make our food more sustainable, we're going to need to support agriculture. We need to invest in or support businesses that are looking at opening up a slaughterhouse so that we can start raising our own meat on island. That will help reduce our dependency on food being imported. Tourism has fallen 80 to 90%, and it's going to be down for 3, 4, 5 years based on all the experts. So what should we do to shift towards diversification, such as aquaculture instead of tourism? What we need to do is we need to reach out to other business industries and build a compelling reason for them to come here to Guam. One of the things we need to do is we need to take this time and opportunity to improve our infrastructure, because our roads are in terrible shape. And when businesses come here looking at opening on Guam, they're going to be looking at the quality of the infrastructure, and one of the things they're going to be paying attention to is roads. The second thing they're going to be looking at is the quality of the workforce available here. And we need to dramatically improve the resources and technology that we provide to our Department of Education. Because whether we like it or not, children are our biggest export from Guam, because we have an economy that creates about 1,000 low-wage service sector jobs a year. We have a education factory, if you will, that graduates between 2,000 and 2,500 students a year. That's the #1 reason why Guam sends so many of our children into the military, because if you go into the military, you have much better career choices ahead of you than if you stay here on Guam for most people. So yes, we need to diversify our economy. That needs to be led by the administration with support from the legislature. As a senator, there's not much I can do personally to diversify the economy other than support the efforts of the Guam Economic Development Authority and the administration to bring more and new businesses to Guam. Regional Mass Transit Authority, that's something close to my heart. Back in 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, I was on Governor Calvo's Mass Transit Authority Task Force. I believe that mass transit is vital to the people of Guam, all the people of Guam. If we had a mass transit system that was designed from the ground up to support commuters as opposed to focusing on people with disabilities, we would have a world-class system that would end up putting between $50 and $100 a month back into the pockets of every working person on Guam. Because if you didn't need a car, just think of all the money that you could use for, improving your lifestyle, paying rent or mortgage or other living expenses. Guam has the potential to have one of the best mass transit systems in the world, but we don't have the political will at this time. Electing me to the legislature, I will do my best to reinforce the political will to create a world-class mass transit system that will put between $50 and $100 a month back in the pocket of every person who has a job here on Guam. Okay, that takes us to number 7. What will I do to end racism towards our FSM communities and other minorities? There's nothing that I can do as a senator. You can't legislate morality. You can't legislate attitude. That comes from each individual person watching this video. You determine how you interact with other people. I don't determine how you interact with other people. I have been both a member of the majority community here on Guam and a member of a minority community in the mainland. And I understand, and I have felt racism from both sides. But again, it's an attitude that individuals carry, and it's nothing that we can legislate. The Chamorro people are the indigenous people of the Marianas and have been denied the rights to their lands. As you all know by now, I have been fighting with the Commission on Decolonization for a couple of years. I've been fighting with the chairman, Kelly Marsh, trying to get the laws changed. This is not something that should be done by the government. This is something that should be done by the people themselves. When you are getting federal money, you're basically an agent of the federal government. When you get money from Government of Guam, you are basically an agent of Government of Guam, which is an agent of the federal government. I do not believe that this movement has any legitimacy because they refuse to do the education work necessary, and they refuse to hold a vote to find out whether or not the people want this or not. They had $300,000, the Commission on Decolonization had $300,000. And what did they do with the money? Did they hold a survey to find out from the people of Guam what their attitudes were about the right of self-determination? No. What they did is they had a party at the Dusitani. They had a party of the choir where they had a bunch of people who were all within the different task forces, and they refused to allow me to attend because I tried to set up the status quo task force, because so many people want to preserve the status quo, but the fig leaf they hid behind, well, status quo is not included in the law. Well, guess what? The law could be changed if there was the political will to represent all the people on Guam in this situation. So until such time as the Committee on Decolonization, which I will legislate to eliminate, I believe that if the people want to exercise their right of self-determination, they can. They just shouldn't do it with government funding. And we believe that question 9, what vaccine for COVID is available? Will you promise to ensure everyone has free access to receive it? I think the government will definitely be required to make access to the COVID vaccine once it's available. But we're still looking at a long ways down the road. Now, we talk about our healthcare situation on Guam. That is a bigger problem. We have a situation here on Guam where 75% of the population doesn't have health care or inadequate access to health care or inadequate health care coverage. We are in the midst of a growing chronic disease epidemic that is being magnified by COVID infections, as we see in report after report after report, where the people who've been passed away, the people who've passed away or the people who've been hospitalized also have underlying comorbidity issues. And that is a bigger problem. Because when I did a survey of the people of Guam, because the Department of Health didn't have accurate local information on the healthcare, on the mortality rates of the different comorbidities of diabetes, hypertension, cardiac disease, and the rest of the metabolic panel of diseases, polycystic ovarian cancer, fatty liver syndrome, and there's a whole bunch of other chronic diseases that are lifetime diseases that are draining the financial resources of many of the islands in the Western Pacific. 75% of the budget of the Federated States of Micronesia healthcare budget was being used to treat the complications of diabetes. Think about that for a second. 75% of the Department of Health Care budget is being used to treat one disease. And it's that way all over the Pacific, including here on Guam. Based on the survey I did, we were looking at obesity rates in the 30+, 40+%, diabetes rates approaching 40%. So that means that every family on Guam has someone family member that's suffering from diabetes. Here on Guam, an amputation a day is performed due to diabetes. The eye doctors report that the majority of their work is done treating people with complications of their eyes due to diabetes. This is a very serious problem and one that needs to be addressed. And our public health care system needs to be strengthened so that we can focus more on lifestyle changes and preventable diseases and less focus on critical care. And I say that as a person who a year ago was morbidly obese, suffering from the worst case of sleep apnea my doctor had ever seen, diabetic, type 2, irritable bowel syndrome, and a bunch of other chronic illnesses that would have required 7 medications and a breathing device at night. But by making the kind of lifestyle changes necessary, I've been able to reduce my weight by 60 pounds, which reduced my sleep apnea to 0, which has brought my diabetes numbers into the normal range, and many other problems that I had from a chronic disease have disappeared. Lifestyle changes are much more cost effective than a CPAC, diabetes medications like insulin, metformin, and other medications that the doctors had planned to put me on. But in the immortal words of the book, it takes a village, it takes an island, and we need to improve our public health care system so that we can start improving our public's health. It's far more effective doing that than amputations or blindness. As Ben Franklin said, a stitch in time saves 9. But what a lot of people don't do is they don't break that down. A stitch in time saves 9. And that's what we need to do. We need to get our public health system focused more on preventive care so that we don't have a majority of our people using the emergency room at Guam Memorial Hospital as their primary care physician because they don't have health insurance. I'm Ken Leon-Guerrero. On the ballot, I will be Leon-Guerrero, Joaquin, number 9, and underneath my name you will see Ken Leon-Guerrero. I spent 12 years as a community advocate standing up for the people of Guam on a variety of issues. And for our younger people, on my Facebook page, I have a video talking about how important it is for our younger people to get more involved in politics. And I hope that I'm also going to reload it to my YouTube page and my website. And I hope you younger people get involved and step up and claim your right to lead this island, our community and our people, into the future.